So we are in some crazy times. Let's get to this story now. Next week, everything changes for the U.S. dollar next week. The Federal Reserve is about to completely alter how you use money in the United States. Why is no one covering this story? They're focused on Donald Trump, literally ignoring one of the biggest stories in America right now. We're going to get to that part of the story in a moment, how the monetary policy will shift, the monetary system will shift in the United States. But first, something odd is happening in the United States and to the U.S. dollar that's in your pocket right now. It's quickly becoming worthless. And not just in terms of inflation and buying power, but try to pay for something with United States paper currency in your pocket, and you will now be met with resistance. You'll be told, hey, we don't accept paper cash anymore. We don't accept your coins. We don't accept cash at all. We're digital now. That's exactly what's happening. Take the U.S. national parks.
I mean, I accept that from flight attendants because I'm like, you don't have change all the way up here.
Yeah, now, I accept that, but no. But anywhere else, like on the space shuttle, maybe. International Space Station, I get it.
Right.
Like, I don't think that you have a cash register to give me some change, right? But U.S. national parks, yes, places that you drive your RV to and hitch up overnight, you'll now find that these U.S. government parks will no longer accept cash. This is just the first of many government offices, government buildings, government installations that you'll now not be able to pay cash. The cost of going cashless, this article says, and Frommer's, as U.S. national parks, as many switch to plastic only, digital. Here's how Frommer's describes it. So far in 2023, Badlands National Park in South Dakota, Crater National Park in Oregon, Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, Michigan, have all transitioned to fee systems that only allow credit card, debit card, and mobile payments. And Washington State's Mount Rainier National Park set to follow suit in May of this year. Those places join at least 20 more U.S. federal lands that won't take your U.S. federal currency anymore, including Wyoming's Devil Tower National Monument, FDR's former home in upstate New York, the Wright Brothers National Museum in North Carolina, the Chaco Culture Pueblos in New Mexico. From sea to shining sea, you better have a credit card, prepaid pass, or a smartphone that's equipped with a mobile payment app if you want to access these all-important sites of natural beauty in the United States, historical interest, or any sort of outdoor recreation and family road trip fun. I remember pulling up with my family and, if the attendant wasn't there, you drop some money in the bin or you put a little envelope and you drop some cash in the system, gone. You can't do that anymore. And a lot of Americans, I just want to say a lot of Americans are unbanked, don't have a bank account, don't have access to digital currency. So you don't take their cash, they can't enjoy any of this. Go ahead, David.
Well, and I think that's by design. And what this really makes me feel like is this is the further push to the federal digital currency, because like a lot of us use Cash App and Venmo and stuff like that. But what can happen is once they get us into a cashless society, and even using the apps that we right now trust, then they can throw regulations on those apps. And we're already in there because they want to be able to move money instantly with this Federal Reserve thing that they're working on. So it is further moving us toward that digital currency thing that we've been talking about for a while. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone in the chat just says, what happens if the whole system collapses, breaks down, falls down? Yeah, well, here, don't worry about it because the internet never goes down. Websites never have a problem. Banking systems are always secure, so you don't have that to worry about. Don't even worry about it.
Nothing is hackable. Nothing is hackable.
Exactly. Nothing is hackable. So the National Park Service describes going cashless as a way of improving efficiency, saving money, tightening security. Opponents, of course, countering that an ongoing war on cash in various kinds of transactions will hurt privacy, right? Limit access, puts us all at the mercy of technical glitches. Hacking is what we just talked about, or just collapses of the grid. What if power outages, right?
Well, more concerning than that is the idea of just dipping into your money when they decide to. For instance, Senator Elizabeth Warren has been very vocal about wanting to have an H&R block that's federal. So basically, You sign in, the government calculates how much tax you owe, and then just takes it from you right then and there. So there's no room to be creative. There's no tax incentives to say donate to what have you. There's no more arguing. It's just, you owe this, we take it now. That's one of the reasons that we never link bank accounts to our IRS tax payments, because, you know, we'd rather wait for those direct deposits if we have a refund than have them have access to just swoop in and take whatever they want. We had a dispute last year because there was a check that didn't make it on time, even though we mailed it on time. So they were marking it late. Of course, I've never been able to get anybody on the phone, but we had a $600 late fee that I was not able to dispute. We were sending letters, it was going back and forth, but I knew for a fact that this dispute in like future society, they would have just taken it instead of me being able to argue the $600. And
that's a good reminder for all of us. Please, please, please do not have your bank account linked to the IRS.
Now, this is not our advice. This is from tax expert Tom Wheelwright, who we talk about a lot on this show, from the Wealthability podcast, fantastic podcast to, further your financial education. But he does not ever want anyone to link their, if you're like, well, I want that direct deposit, you're better to hold your horses a few weeks for the actual check than to give them that power over you. We're not giving you advice. We're giving you thought. Things to think about.
So the U.S.
Well, and I also wanted to point out really quick the infrastructure for internet and mobile. How many national parks do you have great mobile service to even be able to use these apps? Because you're getting on your bank, you got to be online, or it's not going to get the charge.
That's a great point. How many times are you out there in the middle of nowhere and you're like, we went hiking one time and I don't know, we were somewhere in Pennsylvania and I was trying to get get information to my family or something like that. And there was nothing, no service at all. And we had to wait till we got back on the main road, like 30 minutes away before we ever got any service from anything. So exactly right. So the U.S. is moving to a cashless society, a digital dollar to track everything you do. Side note, the country of Sri Lanka is now accepting U.S. dollars in cash to go to their national parks. Let me repeat that. The country of Sri Lanka is letting you use U.S. dollars to go to their national parks. You just can't do that in the United States. You literally can't make this up. Here's Sri Lanka is allowing foreign visitors to pay in U.S. dollars to enter their national parks. On Monday, the Federal Reserve, led by Jerome Powell, issued a press release declaring the launch of the new U.S. digital dollar, which is coming in July fully, but it rolls out next week, so about 3 days. So get ready, it's happening. Here's what they're planning and how they describe it from the Federal Reserve. The Fed Now service will provide individuals and businesses the ability to send and receive instant payments through the Federal Reserve FedLine network at any time of day, 7 days a week. Recipients of payments using FedLine or FedNow will have immediate full access to funds which enable greater flexibility, they say, and opportunity for immediate use of money sent and received. In April, the Federal Reserve will begin certifying participants so that they can be fully set up when the launch occurs. So again, starting next week. Those institutions will be prepared to send live transactions through the system. And then in June, the Federal Reserve and those certified participants, again, which start next week, will engage in production validation activities to prepare for the launch. But next week, it officially starts, this rollout, the first week of April.
Man.
Now, we have somebody in the chat who just said we're being fearmongers. I would like to point out that at least 11 countries in recent history have gone bankrupt and dipped into citizens' private retirement accounts in order to bail themselves out. Ireland, Hungary, Argentina, the list goes on.
Cyprus.
I can name at least 11 of them.
Greece.
So if you want to call us a fearmonger, that's fine. But then I hope you're not too surprised, because we have over, I think it's getting close to $33 trillion in debt at this moment. Is it 35, 33?
30, yeah, it was like 33 last week. It's probably 34.
And so, and there are talks, for instance, politicians have been discussing forcing private retirement accounts into buying government bonds or treasuries. So not only would they be able to dip into your account, they would force what you use it for. Politicians actually have been talking about it. It's not my idea. I am afraid of it, but I'm not fear-mongering by making it up.
Yeah,
so take that back.
But also, yeah, take it back. But also, by educating you, I don't know how that's fear-inducing. Like, what we're telling you is what's not being reported at all in the mainstream media. They're ignoring this story. And then you saw what happened with Silicon Valley Bank 2 weeks ago, right? Where people woke up and they suddenly lost all their money.
Oh, choose not to be afraid of that. That's okay.
So okay, you can protect yourselves. You can protect your family by doing smart things. And that's all we're trying to do is educate you to make sure that you're protected and, to protect you and your family. So that when...
Well, the thing is, like...
Let me ask you guys, do you guys trust the politicians? Do you guys trust Washington?
Right.
If you do, then good. Then don't... Then put all of your money...
Then why are you here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you can
and the way that they're going to get mass adoption is by this convenience. I mean, we always hear when we get our money back, it takes 3 to 5, like they can take our money instantly, but it takes 3 to 7 business days for us to get it back. And that hurts a lot of people when you make some kind of purchase and you're waiting for that refund. So people are going to, they're going to use that for mass adoption. And then this is going to be tied to, like, if you owe a ticket to the city or something, they're going to be able to take it. They're going to be able to take your tax returns. Like, if you feel like you don't owe the right amount, there's no arguing. They're like, nope, this is what you owe. We're going to take it. Like, they're going to be directly connected to your finances. And this is like that whole social credit score kind of thing that if you commit a crime or do anything, you can be completely locked out of your money. So I think this is something to be fearful of.
Yeah, and if you notice the journalists that we've had on this show, okay, I'm talking about like Wyatt Reed, for instance, great journalist, right? He was sitting in this studio after covering what was unfolding in Ukraine, telling the truth about what was happening in Ukraine. And he was sitting here with Max Blumenthal. We went out to lunch, and he was going to pay Max back for a flight that afternoon because they were flying into Italy later that afternoon after our meeting and our interview. And he said, "Oh my God, my account's been frozen." Like his Venmo account was just frozen by the company. PayPal freezing accounts. We saw, this is what people do.
Brandon Straka, he can't bank. He lost Venmo. He lost PayPal. He lost almost every account he had for the J6 thing.
Yeah. So these companies can do that. And then on top of that, the control that the Federal Reserve will have with the US dollar. So all it is, all we're trying to do is educate you. And so you are aware of what's coming when all of your friends are continuing to do the same old thing, and you are at least prepared with your money in a safe place and are protected in that way. But next week it starts.
Well, also, if I can pop in real quick, but if you look at in the recent history, if you look at who got bailed out first during the pandemics, it was not the people, it was business, it was Wall Street.
Yeah.
So when like this debt comes to when we have to pay this bill for our trillions of dollars of debt, who do you think they're going to take it from first? They're not going to take it from the top. They're going to take it from the bottom up. Yeah. And so it's like that's having
really
your own
point.
assets.
Well, it's called the bail-in process, guys. I did a whole segment on the bail-in process about 2 months ago here on the show. Bail-in versus bailouts. And I featured Cyprus at length, and I went through what happened in Cyprus. It's not fantasy. They did it to 11 countries. This is what Natali just said, but I specifically focused on Cyprus and how the government announced, we're going to use your money to fix the problem. We're going to bail in, not bail out. We're going to take the money that's already been deposited and use that to cover the debts. So it's happened. Catherine Austin Fitts, who's a brilliant, brilliant woman, recently described what going cashless would do to all of us. Watch.
So, Tucker, the one of the bedrocks of freedom is freedom to do financial transactions, including privately, or freedom to do where you want to do and wherever you want to do. And unfortunately, as the financial system has become more and more digital, you see more and more not only invasive surveillance, but more and more controls. You referred to Canada, perfect example. And the reality, as the financial system gets more controlling and more invasive, it's a little bit like bringing up a corral around us. And CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and vaccine passports or digital IDs are sort of the last shutting of the gate. It's hard for many people to imagine the risks here because we're so used to living with financial transaction freedom, and we don't understand that when this gate closes on us, we literally will be sitting in a system where the central banks believe that our assets belong to them, and they can dictate where we can spend money and what we can spend money on. The important thing to understand is central bank digital currencies are not currencies. It gives the ability for the central bankers, and they've said this publicly, the ability to not only set the rules centrally, but enforce the rules centrally. If you don't behave, you can have your money turned off.
Oh, yeah. Have your money turned off, which we're going to get to in a second. So how invasive would this actually be? Well, perhaps as invasive as what China is doing with it. Remember, Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum loves China and thinks that the way that they control their people is top notch.
So we have to define how the world should look like, which we want to come out of this transformation period. I respect China's achievements, which are tremendous over the last over 40 years. I think it's a role model for many countries, but I think also we should leave it to each country to make its own decision what system it wants to adopt. And I think we should be very careful in imposing systems. But the Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
Of course, then he's praised Justin Trudeau as perhaps the greatest student of the World Economic Forum. And we see, of course, civil liberties and banking system structures they put in Canada. We already know that China loves to keep an eye on its people. That's not news. Well, here's another example of how a cashless digital currency would work. It expires. It would expire. Yes, just like that gift card that you got for Chili's 2 Christmases ago that you never used. It disappears. You can't use it under any circumstances any longer, given a time
So they don't
period.
want you to have a savings.
Well, I mean, it just depends on how. Yeah, well, they don't want you to have a savings account. They actually do not want you to have savings. They want you to spend it. So that's what this article purports when we go through this sort of expiring money and here's how they're using it in China right now. In October of 2020, the Shenzhen district announced the distribution of 10 million digital yuan to Chinese citizens, to about 50,000 people. It's about $30 US. Lucky winners could then spend their money at designated shops between the October 12th and the 18th. They only had those 6 days to spend it. A similar announcement happened in Shenzhen when registered Chinese citizens would receive their money on January 11th and then would need to spend it before January 17th. A 6-day sort of stimulus, if you will. Before it expires, it disappears. And if you think that's just going to happen in China, nope, it's coming to the United States. You can read all about the programmable expiring money right on the Federal Reserve's website. They printed it. It's on the Federal Reserve's website. Read it right here. The Fed describes it this way: expiring money, one whose value falls to zero after a specific date, is a potential monetary policy tool. Programmability, a technical feature made possible by digitization, can accelerate decisions to spend it, making it very effective means for stimulating consumption. So they can accelerate decisions to spend it. Oh, you only have 5 days? That'll accelerate your decision to go out and spend money.
Well, this
You know what it reminds me of?
Yeah. What?
Well, I was gonna say, you ever see The Office where Jim is training Dwight with the ding every time and he gives him a piece of candy? It's like every time you get money in your account, they're training you to want to spend it, and it's like then even
It's
when you get your
Pavlovian.
own money, you're gonna be like,
Yeah,
exactly,
Yeah, it is
Pavlovian.
Pavlovian.
Yes, it is. And it also counters the narrative that any kind of federal spending floods the economy with too much money and then causes inflation, because that money wouldn't stay in circulation. It would expire, but then is it really yours? If it's just, then it's a stipend of sugar, of beef, of whatever it is that you can buy in that moment, right? It's not really your money.
And if that's not bad enough, China and Russia and the rest of the BRICS nations are about to completely undermine the U.S. dollar by settling oil purchases in Chinese currency rather than US dollars. Here's how Fareed Zakaria described it in a segment that he just did, where he thinks it's one of the greatest threats to the US dollar. Watch.
Here's my take. The most interesting outcome of the 3-day summit between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping got limited media attention. Describing their talks, Putin said, "We are in favor of using the Chinese yuan for settlements between Russia and the countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America." So, the world's second largest economy and its largest energy exporter are together actively trying to dent the dollar's dominance as the anchor of the international financial system. Will they succeed? The dollar is America's last surviving superpower. It gives Washington unrivaled economic and political muscle. It can slap sanctions on countries unilaterally, which frees that country out of large parts of the world economy. And Washington can spend freely, certain that its debt will be bought up by the rest of the world.
Yeah. So as Monica Crowley points out, well, first of all, Peter Schiff then tweeted this. He just said the petrodollar's days are numbered. China will not likely be paying for Saudi oil in US dollars. So we are seeing sort of the final throes of what was once a powerful reserve currency. What does a digital version of this portend?
I mean, that hegemony, though, obtained by cheating. We went over that earlier this week. If you roll back the tape and watch our history lesson on that, it was not like we earned it. So, and many of you in the chat said, well, that serves you right.
Karma, many of you said, yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't mean it's going to feel good on the rest of us because we're sort of used to living this way and we're going to have to get creative.
Yeah, we're going to have to see how it hits us. I mean, but here's what Monica Crowley, she puts a pin in it by saying this is the end of the U.S. dollar as we know it. Watch.
The fact that oil has always been traded in dollars. If that were to end, that would mean the end of the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about all this in the comments below. Next week starts the digital dollar transition process, April 1st, and then fully implemented Fed rollout in the middle of July. Let's see how much coverage the mainstream media gives to this and what this means for the United States dollar going forward and the tracking that's going to come all with it. So tracking, we didn't even get into the surveillance piece of this at all. I mean,
Does it mean though, if oil stops, if like basically energy in general stops being traded in the U.S. dollar, does that mean we get to stop bombing people for it? Or are we going to keep doing that? Because
I don't know.
That's all we have left.
Well, Fareed Zakaria just said there, our superpower is the U.S. dollar. What he actually should have said is the U.S. dollar is a superpower because of weapons, because it's not tied to gold or anything. So it's tied to the power and the military of the United States right now. So I don't know. Maybe now we go nuts and we amplify. We do more bombing in order to try to prove our point. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.